Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. Welcome to Clinical Tuesday for the second time. For those that maybe tuned in a little bit ago, just had some technical difficulties. I am happy to be with you. I am Dr. Lindsay Huey, one of our lead faculty for Extremity Management Division, along with Dr. Mark Gallant and Dr. Eric Chaconas. Today, I'm going to be diving in to a second part of a two-part mini-series about pain and performance. This week, we're going to just chat briefly about how our patients' close connections and how they interact with those connections, right? Family, friends, spouses, about their pain experience, how we can interact and help them interact better here. But before we do, I'd love to tell you about a couple courses we have coming up. So Marky and I have a full spring, summer, and fall. You can check us out on ptonice.com. There are still spaces in this weekend's course in Knightdale, North Carolina. So April 1st and 2nd, join me if you're thinking about getting to an extremity management and you're in that North Carolina area. It's just outside of Raleigh. I'd love to see you there. And then next available course would be in May 20th and 21st with Dr. Mark Gallant in Hendersonville, Tennessee. And that is such a fun clinic just outside of Nashville. So join him there. Those are those two most recents. But let's dive in to this topic a bit. So I have to review last week what we talked about, so you kind of know where I'm coming from this week. So last week I discussed how when someone's in pain, whether it's after surgery, after injury, or chronic pain, neuroplasticity changes, meaning their ability to adapt, to change motor performance is different when you're in pain, right? We see reductions in speed and accuracy. We discussed last week that the way we can help mediate those changes in performance is by really influencing mindset through two purposeful strategies. Step one was just helping a patient acknowledge where they are in their healing and rehab journey, whether it's acute or chronic. And then helping educate on the timeline and expectations for rehab and really giving a clear direction, right? This seems obvious, but sometimes we are not as overt as we could be here. Step two, I discussed how we need to create mental and psychological preparedness for rehab. And we do this by helping them think about what's normal and what's not in the rehab experience, and how we help them frame rehab. And this is the part that I really want to unpack today briefly, because last week I chatted about giving your patients a phrase from Lorimer Moseley. Lorimer Moseley came up with a phrase that is the following: I'm adapting, I'm on the pathway to recovery. Lorimer Moseley told his patient to use this phrase when people asked about his pain. And just to give you a little clinical context for those that maybe didn't listen last Clinical Tuesday, Lorimer Moseley was doing a podcast with Ebony Rio on BGSM, and they were specifically talking about tendinopathy management and tendinopathy cases. And he had one of his patients with tendinopathy track on a counter how many times family members, friends, coaches asked about that human's pain. So they didn't ask them, how's rehab going? How are your exercises going? They said, are you in pain? And when that gentleman tracked it on the counter, it was over 100 times in a 24-hour period. So Lorimer Moseley gave him this blanket response to say to friends when they ask about pain, I'm adapting, I'm on the pathway to recovery. And I can't seem to get this phrase out of my head. And here's where this next part 2 comes, because it really made me think about how we need to equip our patients proactively with this phrase and with this mindset in order to curate a supportive environment around them. Let's think about Betty, 69-year-old Betty, after total knee replacement, right? Let's say she's 4 to 6 weeks out. She's still having stiffness and pain in the morning, right? She's still not sleeping really great. She probably still has a little bit of swelling. It's getting better. And it's hard probably for Betty not to think about, well, I'm still not sleeping well. I'm still walking kind of slow. My knees still feel stiff. I'm in pain. It's really easy to focus on what you can't do, right? And it's really easy to talk about that with her friends, right? When she's playing bridge or out on a walk with a friend in the neighborhood, right? To focus on all the cannots, all the things she can't do, especially if her friends are saying, well, how's that knee pain, Betty? How are you sleeping, Betty? Right? And focusing on that negative aspect. I think starting day one in our evals that we need to give this phrase to our patients. I'm adapting. I'm on the pathway to recovery. If we can have Betty say this phrase to her patient or to her friends and her family and or her spouse, this opens up this opportunity for them to say, what do you mean, Betty? I'm on the pathway to recovery. And then Betty can unpack things that you've talked about with her in rehab. Well, I need to do my heel slides and my quad set with a calf stretch because I'm really working on my range of motion. That helps me with my stiffness in the morning. Doc says I need to do that 2 to 3 times a day to help with that, right? Or Betty then says, Lindsay has me working on my gait speed, working a little bit faster on getting in and out of a chair, working a little on my efficiency of getting up and down the steps. It opens this opportunity for them to talk about what they're working on versus on pain. How our patients think about their pain experience and how others around them think about it matters. And we can't discount this. And what's hard is it's really intangible, right? We don't have a study telling us how to do this right. We just generally know that when we're focused on pain, right, that can make pain increase, right? And then as pain increases, that will inevitably decrease our performance and neuroplasticity. So I really think we have this opportunity to build a margin in our mindset and margin in the connections around us. I'd like to make it a little shorter though, right? 69-year-old Betty maybe doesn't want to say all the time, I'm adapting, I'm on the pathway to recovery. I'd love to suggest a rewrite from Lorimer Moseley, even though I thought it was really awesome and it really inspired me. Obviously, I'm doing a podcast on it. But I'd love us to tell Betty to say to her friends, her family, I'm on the pathway to better. I'm on the pathway to better. This phrase begins to build margin in Betty's mindset. And it begins to help those around her to hold her accountable to shift her mindset away from pain and more on the rehab process, more on what the patient is in control of. Right? When we think about rehab process, think about whatever the deficit they need to improve, range of motion, strength, power, flexibility. For Betty, it's her heel slides, her quad sets when she's at home. And then in the clinic, it's working on her deadlifts and her squats. But I am on the pathway to better. It's an opportunity to help our patients connect to the rehab experience more authentically. It's our opportunity to give them autonomy over their HEP, right? Over things that they can influence their environment, like not just their home exercise, but like sleep hydration, protein. Having a patient have the thought process of I'm on the pathway to better helps them be more autonomous, helps their self-efficacy to focus on what they can do about it rather than being a victim to the pain experience. This shift in mindset for the patient and for those they connect with helps them have a victor mindset rather than a victim mindset. When we say I am on the pathway to better or help our patients say this, it helps them focus on what they can do. in this process. This is a really short podcast, very intentionally, because I want you to grab onto that phrase and I want you to think about how you can introduce this to your patients early on in care and how you can help them introduce "I'm on the pathway to better" to those around them. Help your patients have ownership over their rehab experience by helping them have a posture of not this is happening to me, right? Whether the need to have a total knee replacement, or if someone had an acute injury, or maybe it's even a motor vehicle collision, something outside of their control. Help them focus on what they can control and then help them relay those things to their surrounding tribe, because that surrounding tribe is going to hold them accountable, right? Betty's friend that she walks with every day, she'll say, "How are your exercises going, Betty? Is there anything I can help you with? Can I do them with you?" Right? Versus, "Betty, how are you sleeping? How's your pain today?" Right? Let's shift that focus on the process of rehab versus the pain associated with rehab. Patients will have reduced pain and better performance if you can help curate their mindset around rehab, and if you can help them relay that to those around them. Equip your patients with the simple phrase, "I'm on the pathway to better," and then show them how to attain better, right? Continue to progress their exercises and plans of care through progressive resistance and great clinical practice, right? Thanks for allowing me to share a little bit on how we can influence our patients' pain experience this Clinical Tuesday. Please reach out to me, LT Huey or Lindsay Huey at gmail.com, if you have any questions or suggestions on how we can help our patients be more involved in their rehab process. Cheers, everyone. Happy Tuesday.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.